Haribo, namaste. Welcome back again. We are going to read some more from the Krishna book. Excuse me. And I thought before we started on this class on the reading in Krishna book, I would actually recite the third prayer. I've been reciting Lord Chaitanya's first two prayers and the third prayer because the first three prayers of Lord Chaitanya are pertinent to the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, which were the kirtan, which is what we're going to do right now. So I will recite this third prayer. One should chant the holy names of the Lord in a humble state of mind, feeling oneself to be lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer all respects to others without expecting respect in return. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Such a wonderful prayer. My Guru Dev, my spiritual master, has instructed that we should meditate on this and recite it once a day, because in it encompasses everything about spiritual life. When we chant the names of God, we should do so in a very humble state. And this is the way we should actually operate in all situations, to be respectful to everyone, regardless of how they treat you, and never expect respect in return. I mean, honestly, if you really wanted to be respected by being in a situation where you don't expect any respect, and you're very humble, people will respect you immediately. But that's not the goal of our human form of life. Is to we are in the world with a situation and a desire to lord and control and have people respect us as great whatever, and it never really brings us any kind of happiness. So the real happiness is taking the lowest point, and that is the point where we can actually receive the grace of Krishna, receive the spiritual strength that we need to operate in this material world. And some of these analogies, like a blade of grass, the grass or the straw on the street, oftentimes it's like the grass that's thrown on the ground. It's very low. It doesn't think of itself as being very lofty or high or spiritually knowledgeable or anything, but by the grace of Krishna and their spiritual master, a person is receives the mercy of Krishna. But the devotee of Krishna never expects any respect. He doesn't think he's worthy enough. He thinks of himself as very sinful and with all kinds of faults. But this is the best place to be at, to receive, to be able to chant Krishna's names. So, and that's like a tree too. This is more tolerant than a tree. A tree is very tolerant. And we've been reading this story about the two demigods who became trees. They had to be in a position of a tree for so long. For such a long time, they had to be very tolerant of all kinds of things. And trees are. The animals come on it and they burrow holes in it, and they have to deal with the cold. They can't just scratch their back. They're just in this position. It's considered a mode of ignorance, but they're very tolerant. So this is a very good analogy by Lord Chaitanya, that one should be as tolerant as a tree is. One should be very tolerant of all situations, not just of how people react to you, but of your own mind, of how your mind reacts, what kind of anger comes out of a situation. How do you react in a situation? Do you get angry at somebody who finds fault in you, or do you just take it and say, yes, I am a very sinful person, but fortunately my spiritual master in Krishna loves me, and that is the greatest benediction. So with that kind of thought, we go to our chanting, the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, and we engage in this process, really listening, taking this into our heart humbly and very fortunately. thinking of the song I was going to do, and I'm trying to remember what it was. That's okay, though. We'll just... Haribol. Please accept my respects. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual teacher who has given me all the spiritual knowledge that I am teaching to you today and who I'm eternally grateful for. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We had just finished the story of the two sons of Kubera, who is the demigod of the treasury demigod, very wealthy. His sons, Nala, Kubera, and Manigriva, were also very handsome and very wealthy, but because of such were addicted to sex and alcohol. So in the situation that we heard, they were cursed by the sage Narada, who happened upon them naked and frolicking with women in the water, drunk. They didn't dress themselves or show respect to the sage, and so therefore they were cursed by the grace of Narada, who made it so that they could take them out of their sinful situation that was a hellish existence, because although seemingly pleasurable from a material point of view, such things lead us away from our goal in life, in human life, which is to be with Krishna in the spiritual world. That is our natural state, but we stepped out of that world. We have become under the influence of the material energy and the desire to lord and control. And in the story, they became trees by the curse. And of course, in the story of Krishna being bound by Mother Yasoda, he took his wooden mortar and he pulled the trees down so that he could fulfill the curse and the benediction of his great sage, great devotee, Narada Muni. And of course, the demigods came out and offered prayers because they had remembered that by the grace of Narada, they had remembered the whole time what they had done. They had had time to reflect, a very long time to reflect. And then they were reinstated and sent back to the heavenly planets to live out the rest of their life as demigods and then go back to the spiritual world. And in this story, in the next story, we are actually reading, there are more demons showing up. It's called Killing the Demons, Vachashura and Bakashura. I'm going to clean my glasses because they're kind of foggy. So, thank you. When the twin Arjuna trees fell to the ground, making a sound like the falling of thunderbolts, all the inhabitants of Gokula, including Nanda Maharaj, immediately came to the spot. They were very much astonished to see how the two great trees had suddenly fallen. Because they could find no reason for their falling down. They were puzzled, as like these situations. They would never think like, oh, well, Krishna knocked the trees down, because what baby can knock a tree down, right? When they saw a child Krishna bound up to the wooden mortar by the ropes of Yashoda, they began to think that it must have been caused by some demon. Otherwise, how was it possible? At the same time, they were very much perturbed because such uncommon incidents were always happening to the child Krishna. While the elderly coward men were thus contemplating, the small children who were playing there informed the men that the trees fell due to Krishna's pulling the wooden mortar with the ropes to which he was bound. And the children there who see it, and they're always telling like, no, it was Krishna who did it, And then everyone's like, you kids, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, fantasy, right? Krishna came in between the two trees, explained, and the wooden mortar was topsy-turvied and stuck in between the trees. Krishna began to pull the rope, and the trees fell down. When the trees fell down, two very dazzling men came out of the trees, and they began to talk to Krishna. Most of the coward men did not believe the statement of the children. They could not believe that such things were at all possible. Some of them, however, believed them and told Nanda Maharaj, your child is different from all other children. He just might have done it. Nanda Maharaj began to smile, hearing about the extraordinary abilities of his son. He came forward and untied the knot just to free his wonderful child. After being freed by Nanda Maharaj, Krishna was taken onto the laps of the elderly gopis. They took him away to the courtyard of the house and began to clap, praising his wonderful activities. Krishna began to clap along with them, just like an ordinary child. The Supreme Lord Krishna, being completely controlled by the gopis, began to sing and dance just like a puppet in their hands. Very wonderful. Sometimes Mother Yashoda used to ask Krishna to bring her a wooden plank for sitting. Although the wooden plank was too heavy to be carried by a child, still somehow or other Krishna would bring it to his mother. Sometimes, while worshipping Narayan, his father would ask him to bring his wooden slippers, and Krishna, with great difficulty, would put the slippers on his head and bring them to his father. Krishna, of course, is like playing like a child. Oh, I'm trying to carry it. Ooh. And then when he was asked to lift some heavy article and was unable to lift it, he would simply move his arms. In this way, daily, at every moment, he was a reservoir of all pleasure to his parents. The Lord was exhibiting such childish activities before the inhabitants of Vrindavan because he wanted to show the great philosophers and sages searching after the absolute truth, how the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is controlled by and subject to the desires of his pure devotees. Once again, this point being brought back home, that many great mystic yogis who are capable of doing so many mystic activities and meditating for long periods of time and trying to meditate on the absolute truth of the Supreme Brahman, don't even realize that the source of the Supreme Brahman, the source of all, is being easily controlled by those who love and serve him. So even great philosophers, I was talking with a friend of mine today about the Vaishnavas are the great thinkers in our spiritual lineage. People like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, my own spiritual master, but of course A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and so many other great Vaishnavas were such amazing philosophers. They had their knowledge and their depth of wisdom is just mind-blowing. That the so-called philosophers of Western society, even people like Plato or Nietzsche or Kant or any of them were pitiful. They're minuscule compared to these great thinkers, because most philosophy is based on this idea of mental speculation. Let me twist my brain around. Let me contemplate it with my own mind. Let me try to, once again, as we were saying before, ascend to the absolute truth with the power of my mind. But we cannot reach the absolute truth with the power of our mind, because our mind is full of so many deficiencies. We can't see what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't see what's happening even outside of our own room or behind us unless we see in a mirror. We don't know what other people are thinking. We're often mistaken by so many things by the power of our mind. Sometimes we're out in the forest, we see a stick, we think it's a snake. Or, you don't even know where you put your keys from the car, even they're sitting right in front of you. So, the idea that atheists are like, I can somehow or another, great philosophers who are often atheists as well, that I can somehow or another figure out the absolute truth of the mind is absurd, it's ludicrous. But the fact of receiving a transcendental knowledge from the Supreme Lord, you can understand within your heart by the process of bhakti yoga, by the process of humbly, just like we were saying in Lord Chaitanya's prayer, humbly and without pride, receiving that knowledge, considering it, applying it in our life, and chanting in this way, we can come to know the absolute truth. So that's a very wonderful thing. If people the atheists oftentimes they don't believe that, because they're envious of God. They think, if I can't know it, then no one else can know it. It's like we certainly can't know it unless we believe in our speculators, in which a lot of scientists and empirical scientists are speculators. We believe in these prophets because they speculate this certain knowledge. But even many of these scientists are envious of God too, and so they can never know. And they may know a lot of little technical things about the material nature, but they don't know anything about the absolute truth. They even think that they're their bodies, which is, ridiculous. They're actually quite stupid. They have a poor fund of knowledge, as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami would say. One day, a fruit vendor came before the house of Nanda Maharaj. Upon hearing the vendor call, "If anyone wants fruits, please come and take them from me." Child Krishna immediately took some grains in his palm and went to get fruits in exchange. In those days, exchange was by barter. Therefore, Krishna might have seen his parents exchange fruits and other things by bartering grains, and so he imitated. But his palms were very small, and he was not very careful to hold them tight. So he was dropping the grains. The vendor who came to sell the fruits saw this and was very much captivated by the beauty of the Lord. So he immediately accepted whatever few grains were left in his palm and filled his hands with fruits. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a typo. I actually thought the fruit vendor was a woman. So I think it might be she. So she immediately accepted whatever few grains were left in his palm and filled his hands with fruits. In the meantime, the vendor saw that his whole basket, well, maybe it was his, because it does say his. I was just thinking it was a female, but that's an interesting point. I have to ask about that. The vendor saw that his whole basket of fruit had become filled with jewels. The Lord is the bestower of all benediction. If someone gives something to the Lord, he is not the loser. He is a gainer by a million times. So this is a very important point, that devotional service, serving the Lord, is such an easy, and there are many, many ways you can do it. Even if a person says Krishna one time, or somebody smiles at a devotee of Krishna, or they offer something to a devotee, that person is benefited. And even indirectly, a lot of times people are benefited. So you may hire somebody to come and do something, and you use it in the service of Krishna. They're benefited for their labor, even though they're getting paid for it. And they're not thinking, oh, I'm doing this for Krishna. They still receive benefit for that. So there's so many ways that you can spiritually be benefited by just this person thought, oh, this boy is very beautiful. Let me just give him the fruits anyways. And then he received all these jewels. So there is, that's a very important point to remember. One day, Lord Krishna, the liberator of the twin Arjuna trees, was playing with Balaram and the other children on the bank of the Jamuna. And because it was already late in the morning, Rohini, the mother of Balaram, went to call them back home. But Balaram and Krishna were so engrossed in playing with their friends that they did not wish to come back. They just engaged themselves in playing more and more. Krishna loves playing, he's having a great time. When Rohini was unable to take them back home, she went home and sent Mother Yashoda to call them again. Mother Yashoda was so affectionate towards her son that as soon as she came out to call him back home, her breast filled up with milk. She loudly cried, "My dear child, please come back home. Your time for lunch has already passed." She then said, "My dear Krishna, my dear lotus-eyed child, please come and suck my breast. You have played enough. You must be very hungry, my dear little child. You must be tired from playing for so long." She also addressed Balaram thus, "My dear, the glory of your family, please come back with your younger brother Krishna immediately. You have been engaged in playing since morning, and you must be very tired. Please come back and take your lunch at home. Your father, Nanda Raj, is waiting for you. He has to eat, and so you must come back so that he can eat." As soon as Krishna and Balaram heard that Nanda Maharaj was waiting for them, he could not take his food in their absence. They started to return. Their other playmates complained, "Krishna is leaving us just at the point when our playing is at the summit. Next time we shall not allow him to leave." This is a loving relationship that they're having. They're like kind of bullying around their friend, like, "Oh, we're not going to play with you." Just like kids, we're not going to play with you if you don't stay here. And this is very wonderful and transcendental. His playmates then threatened not to allow him to play with them again. Krishna became afraid, and instead of going back home, he went back again to play with the boys. At that time, Mother Yashoda scolded the children and told Krishna, "My dear Krishna, do you think that you are a street boy? You have no home? Please come back to your home. I see that your body has become very dirty from playing since early morning. Now come home and take your bath. Besides, today is your birthday ceremony. Therefore, you should come back home and give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Don't you see how your playmates are decorated with ornaments by their mothers? You should also be cleansed and decorated with nice dress and ornaments. Please, therefore, come back, take your bath, dress yourself nicely, and then again you may go on playing." In this way, Mother Yashoda called back Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are worshipable by great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. She was thinking of them as her children. When Mother Yashoda's children, Krishna and Balaram, came home, she bathed them very nicely and dressed them with ornaments. She then called for the Brahmanas, and through her children, she gave many cows in charity for the occasion of Krishna's birthday. In this way, she performed the birthday ceremony of Krishna at home. Let's see, we can probably read one. Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of recap here in this story. I'll read this. After this incident, all the elderly members of the coward men assembled together, and Nanda Maharaj presided. They began to consult amongst themselves how to stop the great disturbances in the Mahavana on account of the demons. In this meeting, Upananda, brother of Nanda Maharaj, was present. He was considered to be learned and experienced, and he was a well-wisher of Krishna and Balaram. He was a leader, and he began to address the meeting as follows. My dear friends, now we should leave here for another place because we are continually finding that great demons are coming here to disturb the peaceful situation, and they are especially attempting to kill the small children. Just consider Putana and Krishna. It was simply by the grace of Lord Hari, that is Krishna, Lord Hari is Krishna, that Krishna was saved from the hands of such a great demon. Next, the whirlwind demon took Krishna from away in the sky, but by the grace of Lord Hari, he was saved, and the demon fell down on a stone slab and died. Very recently, this child was playing between two trees, and the trees fell down violently, and yet there was no injury to the child. So Lord Hari saved him again. Just imagine the calamity if this child or any other child playing with him were crushed by the falling trees. Considering all these incidences, we must conclude that this place is no longer safe. Let us leave. We have all been saved from different calamities by the grace of Lord Hari. Now we should be cautious and leave this place and reside somewhere where we can live peacefully. I think we should all go to the forest known as Vrindavan. So they are in a greater area, Mathura area, but they are moving into a different location, Vrindavan village. Where just now there are newly grown plants and herbs. It is very suitable for pasturing grounds for our cows, and we and our families, the gopis and their children, can very peacefully live there. Near Vrindavan there is Govardhan Hill, which is very beautiful, and there is newly grown grass and fodder for the animals, so there will be no difficulty in living there. I therefore suggest that we start immediately for that beautiful place, as there is no need to waste any more time. Let us prepare all our carts immediately, and if you like, let us go, keeping all the cows in front. On hearing the statement of Upananda, all the coward men immediately agreed. Let us immediately go there. Everyone then loaded all their household furniture and utensils on the carts and prepared to go to Vrindavan. All the old men of the village, the children and the women, were arranged on seats, and the coward men equipped themselves with bows and arrows to follow the carts. All the cows and bulls, along with their calves, were placed in the front, and the men surrounded the flocks with their bows and arrows and began to blow on their horns and bugles. In this way, with tumultuous sound, they started for Vrindavan. All right, I'll just read one more paragraph. This is great. And who can describe the damsels of Raja? They were all seated on the carts and were very beautifully dressed with ornaments and costly saris. They began to chant the pastimes of child Krishna as usual. Mother Yashoda and Mother Rohini were seated on a separate cart, and Krishna and Balaram were seated on their laps. While Mother Rohini and Yashoda were riding on the cart, they talked to Krishna and Balaram, and feeling the pleasure of such talks, they looked very, very beautiful. Well, I think we'll probably stop there. It's really good. So we're actually, there's a lot of really great stories, and the stories of the demons that are about to appear. We'll get into that next time. But this is a wonderful, wonderful story, as usual. Wonderful philosophy. And so thank you very much. I'm going to chant a little bit more. Once again, if you haven't been able to, if you've just joined us, please go back in my YouTube videos and go start from number 1. Watch all the way through so you get the full thing. And if you know anyone who may enjoy these stories and the talks about Krishna, please share, like, subscribe to my channel, and let's chat a little bit more. All right. That's all for today. Stay tuned for more great stories next time. Haribol Namaste.